So I just left the train station. I'm on my train ride. Very nice train. I changed seat because the person sitting next to me is kind of big, and we were cramped in there, and there are many empty seats. Hopefully nobody will sit next where I'm sitting now. And the woman was not very nice. Usually they are very sweet, but she was like, first she was sitting in my seat. I asked her if I can sit there, and she gave me a bad, ugly look. And then I tried to explain to her that we have empty seats, and she made me understand if I want I can move. She would not move, and so I moved. But somebody coming to sit in my seat, I will make her move again. Unfortunately, that's
Шановні пасажири,
the
до
rule
ваших
of the
послуг
game.
на вагоні номер 3 працює вагон бар буфет. Шановні пасажири, до ваших послуг на
I don't
вагоні
know what
номер
they're
3
saying,
працює
but they
вагон бар
scanned my
буфет.
ticket, so I'm sure that this train goes to where I'm going to Lviv. And this is what are they doing? These people walking in the. Some people there walking. Oh, I guess it's a walking place. Snow everywhere, so beautiful. So I'm going to rest a little bit. Oh, it's so beautiful, the trains. So this is the place. This is one of the countries that the media and the government say not to travel to. It's so dangerous. Please don't go. You can be killed. I'm still alive. Look at all these trains. Beautiful. I love trains. I think I love trains more than planes, even though I work in an airplane. Don't go to Iraq, it's so dangerous. There are terrorists, there are murderers, there are Muslims. Muslims are very bad. Don't go there, be scared, be live in fear. Don't go to Russia. Russia is very bad. They are our enemy. Don't do that. You can be arrested. Yes, you can be arrested if you don't respect the laws, like in the US. If you bring drugs, if you sell drugs, and they catch you, you can be arrested. You can be arrested in the US, you can be arrested in Italy, you can be arrested. And some places even have the death penalty. So if you get arrested having drugs in your suitcase in Russia, you're lucky you don't get killed. And you are even lucky if they exchange you for a serious criminal who smuggled weapons, and I don't know what else that guy did. But he was a serious criminal, and so we gave up on a serious criminal that should be locked up for... Anyway, this is so beautiful. This is so beautiful. Oh, I read comments online. American citizens should not go to Venezuela, should not go to Russia, should not go to Ukraine, should not go to Iraq, should not go to Afghanistan, should not go anywhere. Anywhere that the US government had decided that those countries are enemies. I have no enemies. I have no enemies. And if you create enemies, they are certainly not my enemies. I love everybody. People in other countries that didn't do anything personally to me. And I believe that traveling create understanding and create dialogue between people. So that's what I believe, and that's why I travel all my life, to understand and to learn about other culture. I've always been fascinated by other cultures. That's why also I wanted to learn other languages. But these enemy things that the US has to always create new enemies, it's other communists, it's other homosexuals, it's other Muslims, black people, Native Americans. Iraqi, Afghanistan. People have been to Afghanistan. They said they are some of the sweetest people also they have met, the most hospitable, and that's in my bucket list. I actually hate that word, bucket list. Sounds so low. It's in one of my goals to go to Afghanistan and of course you cannot understand a culture by just staying there a few days, but you can have a better sense than what the media try to portray. And I know there are very good people everywhere, like there are some bad apples everywhere, and we have many bad apples in the US as well, and in Italy and in another country. Anyway, I'm glad I came to Ukraine, and I'm honored that I was able to come here, and I'm humbled that I had this experience that many other people can only dream of, either because they don't have the means or because they just don't have, we are just so used to live in fear, and I refuse to live in fear. Of course, always safety, you have to do things with a grain of salt, but even with the war, people still going on with their life. And there are some areas that are more dangerous than others, where really, like the Donbas region is I'm sure there is a much different story than what's going on here in Kiev. These trains are so hot. Outside is, I think, below 0 Celsius. And once you get inside the train, you have to remove all your clothes. I dress by layers. And it's just, I have to be almost with a t-shirt. Even this is flannel. I think you say flannel in English. In Italian it's flanella. And it's nice, I like it. I don't know if it's like grandpa shirt, or maybe it's back in fashion, but I like it because it's the material is kind of thick, and so I have that. I have another shirt on top of it, and usually I also have a sweater, but today I was out for a little time, so I didn't have to wear it. Look how beautiful it is outside. So it's so hot, and they said these people are freezing, and winter is very bad. I know some people are freezing in Italy right now because they cannot afford to pay for electricity or for gas to keep them warm. They have to choose between heating, food, or medicines, because the Italian government squeezes the people, the middle, especially the lower working class, so bad with taxes and with low wages and with the low pensions. And it has been like that since I was little. I always heard about sacrifices, and those that have to sacrifice for a bad economy is always the working class. And upper class and the elite, they evade taxes, and they have and they exploit the working class. And so there are people that they have to live out of $500 or less on a pension, with inflation skyrocketing, especially now, inflation skyrocketing, and gas bills and electricity bills also skyrocketing. This is so beautiful outside. It's really Christmas time. Before coming to Ukraine, I was in Poland, and I went for my first time ever. I went to a place that for the longest time I wanted to visit, Auschwitz-Birkenau. It was a very intense experience. It was very sad to go in the same places where thousands and thousands of people have been brought from their homes everywhere in Europe, and then they were selected. Those that were fit, they were made to work for the Germans, for the Nazi Germany, and those that they were not fit, they were sent to the gas chambers. And for what my tour guide told me, 1 million people died just in Auschwitz and in Birkenau. And they were mostly Jews, but there were some political prisoners, and there were Roma, Gypsy, and there were homosexuals. But for some reasons, the guy she talked about the homosexuals, but for some reasons, it was not mentioned anywhere in any of the panels describing the different spots of the concentration camp. And another thing that I was reflecting on, the Holocaust. So they're passing with food and drinks. Food and drinks. They don't have food here, but they have food in the train. Right. They have food everywhere. So the Holocaust was a horrible, horrible experience. Horrible genocide of people based on their religion. As there were many other events when human beings have shown the lowest, the most cruel aspects by other genocides. I'm thinking about Native Americans. Millions and millions and millions have been exterminated, massacred, and most disappear completely. Entire cultures disappear completely. Black people, African people, kidnapped by the millions from Africa, from their homes, shipped in containers like objects, I will not even say animals, like objects next to each other in their own excrements without probably barely little food to survive. Many were thrown in the sea and then brought to the American continent and used, abused, tortured, killed, their children sold away. Just horrifying what human beings can do to other human beings. And Aboriginal people in Australia, the same fate or similar fate that happened to Native Americans. But we didn't learn anything. When the Japanese were interned during World War II. And now, with Russians. So, the Russians are seen, not just the government, it's Russian people are seen like the enemy. The enemy that they're destroying the war, destroying against Ukraine. And we haven't learned anything. So we are creating another subclass of citizens, just like is happening in Israel, the Israeli government toward the Palestinians, and apartheid, and keeping them locked in there in Gaza, like in an open-air prison, without depriving them of basic liberties like freedom of movement. in their own land. And now we're doing also that to Russians. The director of our orchestra at the Scala in Milan was fired because he's Russian. Supposedly because he was asked to renegade the president of his government of his country. But when during all the wars the US brought to other countries without any reason, any justification, like the war in Iraq, nobody asked any of the artists, any of the people, American people, to renegade their president in order to travel, in order to work. So Russian, there is something called, this is the food. This is the food. I have so much food, I don't need that food. And I don't really drink tea, and I don't know where the water came from. And a small bottle of water, so I have plenty of water. I don't need to charge myself with more water. So I was saying that something called Russophobia is the hate of Russians. So it makes me very sad because I have some colleagues that are so sweet, and when I meet them on a flight, I imagine them to be Russians, and I want to confirm them, and I want to support them and let them know that I don't have anything against Russian people, and actually I just traveled to Russia. But they are scared almost when I ask them, where are you from? They are scared to tell me I'm Russian. And I'm thinking, baby, you are fine. There's nothing wrong with you. What is wrong with the people they hate? Because they are ignorant. They don't take the time to think about everything and to think about distinguish the government, whatever decision a government makes, from the people. And the interesting thing, when I went to Russia, everybody was nice to me, even though that the entire world is against them. They knew I was a foreigner, but they treat me so nice and so respectfully. I went to Iraq, in spite of what the Europe and the US did to Iraq. All Iraqi people, they were so hospitable and so happy to have me there, and they asked me, please take pictures, take videos of our countries and show the world that we are good people. It really broke my heart. And they are good people, like there are good people everywhere in the world, and so are the Russians. So what's going on now? We haven't learned anything from the mistakes we made in the past with Japanese, Americans, with Jews, with black people. We still treat them like they are less. We haven't learned anything. It's very sad. So I'm continuing my journey from Kiev to Lviv, and it's so relaxing because the train is not full at all. It was full though and crowded when I came from Lviv to Kiev, probably because, I'm sure because it was the weekend. And now it's just during the week, during the day, and good for me. It's not crowded at all. It's empty, so many empty seats. I'm loving this journey. And while I'm riding the train, I'm browsing, and I see hashtags putting criminal, war criminal, and I just wonder, what is this obsession with one person when there is not, first of all, one person is not the government. There are big interests at play. And let's talk about everything else. It's like right now the entire attention has to be on one country that supposedly is holy, Ukraine, and one country that is the devil, Russia. Let's talk about the war crimes that the US has committed in the past 70 years, from Hiroshima and Nagasaki in Japan. Who is being held responsible for those war crimes? Nobody. Let's talk about the war crimes committed in Vietnam by the US military. Who has been held responsible for those war crimes? Nobody. No US president. Let's talk about the war crimes committed in Iraq, in Korea, in Afghanistan, in Libya. Who's calling for condemnation for war crimes of Bush, the senior and the junior, Obama, Reagan, Nixon? Nobody. These people are untouchable because they're the superpower. So we cannot talk about the superpowers, and we cannot have questions, we cannot have doubts. We all have to think one way, the way the mass media, the Western mass media, want us to believe that there are the good people, is Europe and the US, and then there are the bad people, Muslims in the Middle East, from Afghanistan, Pakistan, Iraq, Yemen, Libya, Syria. Those are all the bad people. And the Russians now. What about Israel? What they do to the Palestinians for the past 70 years as well. Those war crimes are not accountable. We pick and choose what war crimes to talk about. We pick and choose the narrative. What about the war crimes committed by the Ukrainian government in the Donbass region? We are not talking about those. It's really interesting how one-directional is the way of thinking of mass media and all those that follow the mass media. It's really sad because it's not just, it's not right. But anyway, the truth will come out as it came out with Iraq, and those that committed those crimes, if they're not punished by the war tribunals, I believe in the higher powers, and they will pay for their crimes some way, somehow, somewhere. If it's not in this world, in another world. So I'm continuing my journey in the train, and I heard the siren, which indicates an emergency, a war emergency. There can be a raid, there can be a bombing. And I thought, even in the train, I mean, the train also can be a target. Anything can be a target. But we are in an isolated area, in the middle of a forest. There are one house here, one house there, very isolated. And then also my phone, I checked my phone and the alarm wasn't there. And then I realized actually it was not, the emergency was not for the train or for the location where I am. It's for Kiev, because my emergency app was set up for Kiev. And as I had emergency notification before, I had a notification now, even though I left. But I guess the app doesn't recognize that I left, just knows that I set it up for Kiev, so right now there is an emergency going on in Kiev. And in a way, I was sad to leave, but I'm glad that I left because it can be a little stressful. I see everybody going on with their life and they don't really mind the emergency, the sirens. At the same time, I don't know what to think, if I do have to hide in a shelter or not. But I hope the situation comes to an end. But it seems like it's not coming to an end because the president of Ukraine doesn't want to negotiate. He wants to continue the war. He doesn't want to talk to the president of Russia. And but if we have any, what bothers me that in the past few years, since the pandemic, for what I can tell, we cannot have differing opinions. We have to think exactly what the mass media and the government tell us to think. We have to think that experimental drug is the only way out of contracting the virus and transmitting the virus. And if if you have doubts about it, you are against science. You are for Trump. You are the devil. You are discriminated. You can lose your job. You can. People have lost their job, and we are talking about doctors and nurses that they studied science, but they cannot have any doubts. And then likewise, right now we cannot have any doubts about what the government tell us, that we have to hate Russia and we have to hate their president. And if you have any doubts, then you are for their president. I'm not for or against anybody. I'm just for peace and for dialogue. And I believe that the truth doesn't sit in one side, but the truth and the righteousness is
Чай, кава, сендвічі, десерти, водичка, соки, бургери, сирнички. Чай, кава, сендвічі,
is to be found on both sides. It's not one side that is holy and another side is the devil. So that's my thoughts, and it really bothers me that we cannot think independently. We have to go with the herd, and whatever the herd, the leader of the herd says that we have to go, then we have to follow. If we decide we want to try another path, we want to explore another path, no, that path is not allowed. And if you follow that path, it's the path of the devil. Well, I beg to differ. I want to think in my own mind, and I want to, based on research. Oh, but you research on YouTube, you research, no. It's research of scientists. They are banned. Scholars, history scholars that talk about the historic reasons that we got to where we got with this situation in Ukraine. And I find it very interesting that the focus is only here, but we don't talk about Saudi Arabia that is butchering people in Yemen with weapons provided by the US. We don't talk about the Israeli government, the oppressed and brutalized Palestinians with weapons provided by the US. We don't talk about all of this. We don't talk about the brutality of the US invasion, occupation of Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya. Whether those are not subject to be discussed. We only have to talk about Ukraine and Russia. Well, I'm not doing that.